Welcome to our TAO Book Club. This is the second ever, and we've invited Kimberly Marshall to be with us. Kimberly is a professor of organ at Arizona State University and has been for 25 years. She's done all kinds of writing, but for purposes of this meeting, we are looking at 6 of the articles that are part of her 12 article series on women organists from antiquity to now and all over the globe. And so, Kimberly, thank you for being with us and taking time out of your busy day. And so, welcome to Boston.
It's a great pleasure. I love being in Boston while sitting in Arizona. It's the perfect combination. I was very gratified to be endorsed by the Task Force on Women from the American Guild of Organists to create a 12-part series of articles on different aspects of women's work as organists throughout history across the world. And we are now about to see, I think it's the 9th article of that series about to come out. And as you mentioned, they're coming out every 2 months. And the purpose of being with you all today is to get your reactions. Hopefully some of the subjects that you've read in the past few issues of the American Organist have inspired you, or maybe taught you something you didn't know, or maybe you would like to put in a request for more information. So I'd really love to hear from you about what you think of the series or how it might be developed in the future.
So it can be any of you. I can start by saying, we did when I was dean and subdean, we did a Women in Music Festival for 5 years, and it was organ and choral and some research, and just every sort of we did it in all different churches, and just called for people to bring things to us. We had a lot of the choruses. There's one particular chorus, Capella Clausura, who was doing a whole lot of work on Hildegard at the time, and they brought their music, and some of our own members volunteered music. Carson Kuhlman brought us music of Carlotta Ferrari. All of her music is available completely free on CPDL and IMSLP. So, and that's continued since then. I know I've heard from, we were just talking beforehand, before this all started, and I've heard from men who said, hey, there's some new music I like, and I know that one of our colleagues, who isn't here right now, but he told me that after WimFest, he wants to make sure he's certain to put at least one woman composer every week in his church services, and also Heinrich Christensen did a concert of all women composers at the end of January from King's Chapel, and I saw him shortly beforehand. I couldn't go to the concert, but I saw him shortly beforehand. He said, "I've taken up the mantle. I'm continuing WimFest," so that was really cool. I loved, honestly, I will just say, I loved I was really taken with the article on Chinese music, because now that's a country I haven't heard from before for organ music, because I know that the organ is not particularly popular in China necessarily, but exposure that I've had, and when I was teaching also, I did a lot on Chinese music, and what I've always loved about Chinese music is the natural the reflection of events, the reflection of the natural world, but something very specific, and that is what came out in that article on Chinese music, which I think that can be, that's the thing that sort of got me going. I said, I've got to get that music and take a look at it. But so that I was happy to see that because I know I spent some time with a peapod player who was doing a residency at the school where I was teaching, and we had a chance to really chat for a long time. And she told me about that this inspiration from events, and she played me a piece about a battle, a particular battle in Chinese history, and that's a way that they have of preserving their history. Um, and there was no words to it, but the events, were transpired in the piece. And I saw that this is in this article as well. So I was really happy about that.
Yeah, well, as you pointed out, there's so much happening in China, and actually the organ is becoming increasingly popular. I think you're probably referring to the association with the church, which of course is not possible really in China, but many concert halls are getting organs, and I have 4 Chinese students right now,
Yeah.
primarily pianists, but I really think China is where the organ will flourish in the coming decades. And we're seeing in some ways declines in other parts of the world. One thing that is always inspiring to me about doing such a broad swath of organ history is how resilient our instrument and our players are. And when you think of all of the different vicissitudes and that the organ has survived, it's been able to survive the French Revolution, the fall of the Roman Empire, so many of these really pretty cataclysmic historical events. It gives me hope, and hopefully the rest of you, that we're creative enough and our instrument is just dynamic enough that we're going to find ways to make it always something that will be cherished by some cultures. And as with organ history, there are golden eras, and then there's decline, and then it pops up again somewhere else. And I do think China is really ripe for a big development of organ culture, and it's already happening. I also want to point out that Calvert wrote that article, Calvert Johnson, who is just an incredible male advocate of not only women, but also other cultures whose music has not maybe been fully appreciated or disseminated. And he's just doing amazing work right now with Middle Eastern composers. And he's been to Jordan and doing all kinds of things. And so it was actually difficult to narrow down what he would do for my small little series because he had so much material about different things. And I was really delighted with the different repertoires that he brought to our attention. I did want to ask Louise, were you able to get the scores okay? Did you have enough information for getting the Chinese scores that he mentioned in his article?
I haven't looked into getting them yet.
Oh,
So
okay.
I haven't.
I got some.
Yeah.
That article inspired me to buy some, and I went to Wayne Leopold and picked some things up, and they were shipped right away. And I'm planning some. I'm doing a recital in June at Methuen Hall, and I'm going to play one of the Chelsea Chen pieces, and I'm really excited about it.
Well, one thing that I really prioritized as editor was just, we've got to give people information. I mean, it's one thing to show them all this music, but I want to be able to make it possible for people to get the music and encounter it and play it. And, and that makes me very happy, Cathy. So thank you for sharing that, because I wanted to be sure that you had the information you needed in the article. As I mentioned earlier, the articles themselves are not very detailed and in depth, but the bibliographies are, I hope, they're meant to be robust enough to allow anyone who's inspired or fascinated by what they read to delve deeper, to go into more detail with the full sources. And that makes me very happy, because as you probably noticed, there are only really 2 articles so far in the series that have really dealt with music. Obviously, there's no surviving music from antiquity. So I didn't have anything to work with there. And then most of the articles have been kind of historical, often about composers or women for which we don't really have surviving repertoire. And I think that's fine, because we can imagine and sort of fill in the gaps for ourselves. But it really makes me very happy that you're performing some of the music in these articles.
Yeah,
That's-
Chelsea came a number of years ago and played her Taiwan suite, and that was one of those I was thinking about playing myself at some point. But what I was glad about was, first of all, Nick Bergen sets these things out beautifully, and gives you a chance to. I don't know if you know, and if you know Nick. Nick is the new editor. I guess now what? It's been 2 years or something
yeah.
for TAO, and you've probably noticed that there's a difference in the magazine itself. It's bigger. Did you see that? It's actually that's one thing, and that's another reason why I wanted to draw attention to it, because I think Nick is doing a great job.
I will pass that on to him because I could not agree more. He is
Yeah.
just a delight to work with,
Yeah.
and I love the layout. And one of my priorities was making sure that every article is well illustrated, because I am an iconographer and I believe a picture's worth 1,000 words, at least 1,000 words. So I
Yeah.
wanted to make sure that we had 4 to 5 illustrations for every article, and he supported me on that, even though that can be an editor's nightmare, getting permissions and things like that. And I am just awed by the design, the layout, and I'm glad to hear you say that, Louise. I'm going to pass that on to him.
Yeah. Well, when I was head of the new music, the national new music, we put out a bunch of articles, and whatever we wanted to do, we introduced a lot of new the winners of some of those competitions in the magazine, and I know it got some attention because I did something in Seattle with Alex. As you know, Alex Metzler was part of our group, and he's now the head of that committee, and we had a really great turnout for new music, which never happens, and partly I think is just was due to his work. But anyway, besides anyone else, Catherine, you look like have you been looking at some of these articles, and have you done? Well, first of all, have you done women composers?
I mean, I haven't had the TAO magazine for very long yet, so a lot of these articles I've missed. But I was just thinking of one time I saw another woman post on a forum about what it would be like to asking if it was feasible to have a concert career if she wanted to start a family at the same time. And so I'm wondering, and I had a child not too long ago myself, so I'm wondering if there's a lot of research done on whether or not women played organ throughout pregnancy or not, or if it was bad luck, or just, I don't know, it's just some factoid I was thinking about just now.
That's a great aspect. Well, Clara Schumann only had 8 children, and she was concertizing in Russia, all over, before jet travel. So I think the answer to that question is a resounding yes. It is possible. I don't know if there are other mothers among you, but I think I was 8 months pregnant when I gave the 50th anniversary concert at the Salt Lake Tabernacle for the rebuild of the instrument by G. Donald Harrison. And my biggest concern there was that I might hit a positive piston because my belly was so large. But I think, I mean, as long as you have a healthy pregnancy, I mean, with my second child, I was in Canada. I remember my husband was like, no, you cannot do that, because I said, well, it wouldn't be so bad. I mean, if the child were born, I didn't find out the gender of my children. So I'm very old fashioned that way. So I didn't know, but I was like, if he or she is born in Canada, it wouldn't be the worst thing. He's like, I want to be there though at the birth, but it, it was fine. I was back 3 weeks before the birth. And so
the delivery could have been covered by their free healthcare system.
Exactly. I mean, I was pretty cavalier about the whole thing. But again, I'm fortunate. I was very healthy. You do want to respect your body, and also you want to be sure that you have time to relish that wonderful little being that you bring into the world. I mean, you don't want to feel like you've got a concert to give. So couldn't be at the dedication of Paul Fritz's organ and at PLU because I think Lynn Edwards of the Westfield Society was the first person to know I was pregnant because I had to decline the invitation to play there because I was going to be giving birth around that time. But these are things that you look back on, and I mean, I don't regret not being there because I had this beautiful son, and I would not suggest traveling like the week before your due date or probably a month after. But just because air travel especially is very, very draining, and you want to be with your newborn. But I would encourage women, I mean, as long as they feel like it. For me, motherhood is the most amazing thing in my life. So I would not trade that for anything.
Oh yeah, I was playing the Bach St. Anne when I was like 38 weeks along. So I mean, I know it can be done. It's just a uniquely women's issue. So that's just something that popped into my head just now. Yeah.
No, I think that's really interesting. I'm glad you brought that up because we don't talk about it that much. And I know I had very few role models that had children. And I'm much older than you are. So it was it was almost like if you're really dedicated to your career, it's just career. I don't know if you encountered that at all, Louise, but I did have some role models. But I'm just saying, like, I don't think Claire Kochi had children. There are a lot of really fantastic women organists. And Marie Claire, who was one of my idols, she did have children, but there was issues that she was never there, and there was a lot of resentment and problems and stuff. But and I was like, I don't want to be that. I mean, I don't want to, and of course I'm not Marie Claire Alain, but I do think every woman has to sort of grapple with it, and it can be very helpful to talk about it and share information. I know one of my students who's a brilliant organist and does concerts and has a great church home and everything. She felt so much pressure on like having the baby natural childbirth. And, I mean, it was just like, just have your baby however you want. I mean, and I do think sometimes this whole career perfectionism, superwoman, maybe it's taken to extremes, and there's no one answer. We're all different. And I think you kind of have to follow your intuition. But I do think it's important for us to see other women doing maybe what we want to do. Like not that it's what we should do, but just knowing that there are women that are playing the Sinan 2 weeks before giving birth. And if you want to do that, Catherine did it. So I think that's important. And in crafting my series and like figuring out what I was thinking about role models, because if you don't want to do something, it doesn't matter if you have a role model, right? It's when you're a little girl and you think, I want to conduct that choir, or I want to play that organ. Then when you have something that you're inclined towards or that you really want to do, that's when a role model is important, I think. Especially if you're in a culture where little girls don't do those things.
It's funny. I moved here to study with Yuko Hayashi, who and one of the things that I wanted to do with her was that I knew that it really wasn't just that she was a woman, but I just liked the way she played Bach, for one thing, and I liked her expression. And I think that's probably why the article with the Chinese music resonated so much with me, was because it reminded me very much of Yuko, who was Japanese actually, but we would often talk about she would make phrases like she referred to the natural world a lot. She made me very aware of the natural world, and especially if you're going to play something, especially romantic music, there's so many birds and trees and rivers and all of that kind of thing. And it wasn't just that she was a woman; she made me aware of that. And so that when I saw this in the Chinese music, I thought, sort of putting those two things together, that maybe looking again at some of the music and imagine making a concert of music that is expressive in that natural way and not just preludes and fugues and here's a piece. I know I'm going to do the Mendelssohn Third Sonata, for postlude on Sunday, and there's that third, that second movement has all the runs, you're running all over the place, and I'm thinking, that's a very rivery kind of piece. I've always thought of it that way, and
That
yeah, I mean, it just makes me, and it's one of those things where, okay, so we have some new information about women composers, but it's also a different way of looking at music that I wouldn't have thought about it. When I do a Mendelssohn piece, I'm I'm usually not thinking about that. I'm usually thinking, more technique and sort of the way that the things go. But when I started reading this Chinese thing, I thought, wow, maybe I should just think
Well, you
about it.
might want to get Hope Lee's pieces,
Yes.
because the Gently Rings in Autumn
Mhm.
Wind, and then from the Sterne from a faraway star,
Mhm.
that's very much embedded. And of course,
Yeah.
she has the whole Canadian aspect, but still, you're exactly right. I mean, I think it's a fair generalization to say with Asian composers, there's a lot more reference to the natural world, and it's very, very rooted in natural sounds, in the same way that their architecture is often rooted. There's courtyards, the outdoors, the natural world is part of the indoors dwelling. I mean, it's a very
Yeah.
different approach, which I know I'm trying to get more of that in my life, and I think most of us Westerners are, because we've really done so much to isolate ourselves from the natural world and try to kind of control it in a
Yeah.
pretty devastating way. And I
Yeah.
think all artists should be embracing that, because we are part of the natural world. And of course, sound is, I mean, it's all kind of a unity, and we need to acknowledge that and move forward. And I would love to know what you think of her music.
I know. I actually was just seeing them just now. But one other thing that I noticed in the articles, the article about the French, about the Paris Conservatory, and here's something, and this really does have to do with women. You notice that the number of women organ students rose with World War I and World War II. Did you see how that there were
Yeah.
there were many more women studying organ when the men were away?
Rosie was not only a riveter, she was also
Yeah,
an
Rosie was
organist.
not just a riveter. Rosie was practicing the organ,
Yeah.
and and that was an interesting article, because it really was just the facts, ma'am. I mean, it really was about the numbers, and I kind of appreciated that, because it could, first of all, it was fascinating. I had no idea that that all these women went, right from the get-go, from 1812 or something. It was 50-50, you know
France has always had a rather interesting approach, even though I don't mean to say it was easy for women, and they often couldn't really compete for the prizes and things at first. But I've always felt like there was a lot more equity, and I studied in France, as some of you know, and
Oh, and Natasha, for example, is
yeah,
French.
Friends, I
and
things.
you know how many women there are, like just all of these Dupre students that were women that were just incredibly ambitious and always playing concerts and just teaching and doing so many things. So I do think it's interesting to see how far back that goes, and it
Yeah.
makes you think that when you have roots like that, um, they're gonna, as long as there's nurturing along the way, there's gonna be really great development. And Natasha, you can talk to that.
Yeah.
It was not nurtured, that nurtured depends on your family, you know. It was not nurtured in the bourgeois family in the 19th century. I mean, you know, Mel Bonis, I mean, there's a Louise Farinck, I mean, there's a bunch of women who were excellent, but these were pianists and composers, but Cécile Chaminade, they didn't have it easy, and they did not go as far as the men. And who cares? In a way, you don't have to. What does it mean? Go far? I don't know, but I think you know, there's a reason Simone de Beauvoir wrote Mémoire d'une jeune fille rangée. And the bourgeoisie was very stifling, really. And can you guess when French women got the right to vote?
I know.
Much later than we think.
1945.
Well, this is later than Syria, Egypt, Lebanon. I mean,
I was shocked.
earlier than Switzerland. No, but I mean, you know, there's so anyways, but it depends on the milieu, you know, like women who were born in intellectual families, maybe there are families where you're told there's nothing you can't do. Then you realize, even if you're told that, you might realize that we don't have it that easy all the time.
Yeah, you know, it was, you know, it's funny. I was fascinated. First of all, I had no idea that it was only 1945 when women got the vote in France. When I saw that, I just about, my jaw kind of has recovered, but it took a while. And, you know, but that was fascinating. And what I really also liked was, you know, in David Yearsley's article also, first of all, he's great with titles. Mod Girls of the Early Modern, which is, anyway, first of all, you know, David Yearsley always has a particular twist on things. If you've ever read any Sex, Death, and Minuets, is if you ever have a chance to read that article, it's about Anna Magdalena Bach, and now that's a fascinating history. And I was surprised he didn't mention this, but you know, Anna Magdalena and they met in Köthen. She met Johann Sebastian in Köthen, and the two of them were a real power couple. I mean, between the two of them, that was a quarter of the princes or dukes or whatever music budget were their salaries, you know. And yes, Anne is saying his book was great. I know, Sex, Death, and Minuet, and it's a great book. And you know, it was interesting to say, but you know, it wasn't, you know, but then when they moved to Leipzig to educate, here's a women issue, to educate the boys. You know, they could educate their boys in Leipzig, but she, the soprano, the power couple, she wasn't allowed to sing in Leipzig. So when you think about how that eventually played out, I mean, she was much younger than Sebastian, and when he died, I mean, she was left, as we know, destitute. You go all the way into 1801, and the youngest daughter, who never married, is getting assistance from Beethoven and Berghoff and Hertel. And, you know, what if she had the chance to be employed all that time? I mean, of course, you know, there were a lot of children involved, you know, but, you know, it was interesting.
Magdalena was not allowed to sing in church, right?
Right.
Because they had to have the boy choir. Is that it?
Boy choir, right.
No,
but she sang in the secular situation, she did.
Yeah, in secular, yeah.
And
it all goes back to St. Paul, that lovely contextualization of women staying silent in the churches, which is interpreted out of context, and
out of context.
You know, it all goes really back to that. And
but, you know,
very unfortunate.
I loved his, you know, what he was saying too about, you know, that it was more the iconography that which I always found fascinating. You know, we were talking about that earlier about, you know, first of all, you know, Saint Cecilia, She's female, right? The patron saint of music. And we see all kinds of, the iconography that you were discussing, Kimberly, and also,
And
the
Catalina's article too, it's highly dependent on iconography and interpreting iconography. So that's an important type of source, but very important to be careful when you're interpreting iconography, because you have to know the context, or you can come up with some rather indefensible ideas
yeah.
when you don't do that. I'm going to have to leave, but I would like to just point out that this idea of Saint Cecilia, there are all sorts of allegorical depictions of women playing instruments as muses or as the liberal art of musica. And I've written an article, I mean, it's too detailed to be in this series, but just about the symbols of women making music, and how in many cases behind the symbol, behind the allegory, you can actually find evidence of women actually in the trenches making the music, composing the music, and doing much more than just being this pedestal allegory for our art. It's been a real pleasure being with you all. I'm so sorry I have to leave, but thanks so much to you, Louise. If any of you want to contact me, I'm just Kimberly.Marshall@ASU, that's for Arizona State University.edu. I would love to hear from you, any suggestions, any comments, or any performances that you're doing of this music. It's very, very gratifying to see that all of this information is actually being put to use. So thank you all very much. Sorry to leave.
The rest of us
Continue
can
the
stay on for
discussion.
just a minute. If you don't mind staying on for just a minute, for the rest of you, just so we can just chat about this for a minute, see what we can go forward with in Boston. But Kimberly, thank you so much. And I know you have to get back to auditions at ASU, and that's, it is audition season. Remember that? And so thank you so much. And
It's a great pleasure. And you all keep playing the music. That's what it's all about.
fabulous.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. So thanks everybody for coming. Natasha, you were going to say something?
It's just that, what was the last name of Rosie that she mentioned?
Oh, Rosie the. Maybe Americans only know that. It only came out in America. It's Rosie the Riveter.
That's it? Who's Rosie the Riveter? What is? I thought she had a last name.
No, she didn't have a last name.
Okay.
Let's see if I can get her. I don't know. Can I share screen?
I have no idea what this is about, Rose. So I'm sorry.
I don't know. I have a picture up. Can you, Cathy? Can you? Let's see.
You should be able to share.
Okay, this is not a big one. I just found it. There she is. That's Rosie the Riveter.
Oh, so this is it was just about, because we were talking about women being put to work. Okay, got it.
Yeah, that's Rosie the Riveter.
All right.
Oh, that's an American thing. That's funny. But I love it. Well, Cathy, I'm so glad you're going to be doing Chelsea's piece.
Yeah. I'm curious. So one thing that I struggle with is finding new music and finding new rep. So I know that there are some people out there who are working on cataloging music by women, or new composers in general. But I would love to hear. Maybe I'll even start a Facebook post following this conversation to get people to just list some of their favorite composers. So I'm curious where you all find music by women that you love to play.
There's one I found online because I'm looking for easy music. Her name is Laurel Peterson. Do you know her? She's got so much music that she's arranged and composed for the organ. And I have a feeling it's to do with, well, I mean, a lot is latter, the Mormon church, but there's also a lot for other denominations. My internet is off right now because it's being serviced. So otherwise I I could type and send you the URL. Yeah,
Well, I think we just look her up, right? We should be
it's
probably find
Pederson.
Oh, okay.
Peter. Yeah, I think that's the name. I can't quite remember totally. Yeah.
You know, we've been like we used to do when we used to have these WimFest things, and it was I found a lot of music that one thing that I've always wanted to one thing I had this sort of thought that I would love to promote Fanny Mendelssohn's Prelude in F as like the anthem for women composers. Do you any of you play that piece?
No.
You know, yeah, it's well, who knows if this is really true, but there is a story that it was always the third sonata, of Felix was supposed to be her wedding piece for her wedding, but what happened is that he got delayed. I think he was sick and maybe he was traveling somewhere, but anyway, he got delayed and she couldn't wait for him. So she wrote her own piece for her wedding, which is the Prelude in F. And I've done it a zillion times. And actually the idea came from Rosalind Munson, because
Okay.
we were chatting about it one day, and I think it's her, maybe, I don't know, that this should really be like the anthem, because it's a really good piece. It's not that hard, and it's pretty impressive when you play it. She wrote it for her wedding. So she put her best foot forward.
Oh, I think she played it at the church crawl when I met her.
Oh yeah,
It was
right.
that piece? Yeah.
Yes, right.
Okay. Yeah, she said it's very accessible.
Mhm.
So I must have taken a picture of it or something. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you used to be able to get it on IMSLP.
That was my question.
Yeah, and last time I looked, they took it down. I think so many people were getting it that they wanted somebody to edit it and sell it. Because if it was on IMSLP, I'm not sure if it's even on there anymore. But because
Well,
and
they,
then I
they
still
could
have copies of it from IMSLP.
they can leave the unedited edition, version on IMSLP and don't have to take it out. Anyways.
I'm going to see if it's even in here. Fanny Hensel, IMSLP, works by compositions. Let's see if it's back up there. Oh, probably NFC, it's not here. They took it down. Dang. Probably because somebody, yeah, it's not here.
Somebody got the rights to it. Trying to
Yeah.
somebody.
Yeah, I have it from when IMSLP had it before.
Oh, can you send it?
Sure,
As
I
a
can send it to
PDF?
you.
Huh? As a
Yeah, I have it's to be truthful, I have it in I have a little box by the organ of pieces to use in an emergency.
Okay.
And it's that's where it is.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
So I can, yeah. So yeah, you're in the, yeah. Obviously, you're in the. I have your email. I can send. Sure, I can send it to you. But if you want, I mean, I've done a lot of
Trouble.
music composers. I have a book called Frauen Komponisten something or other. From Germany. It's a wonderful. I've used this. It's edited in Germany, but it's also at church where I keep all my music that I'm going to grab at the last minute. Emmylou Deemer.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do. I've done a bunch of her pieces.
Yeah.
And I mean, first of all, I think you just sort of it's stuff like this. You just sit around and just chat about it. And,
Right.
You know,
And some of them are an investment, so you might not So you sometimes I wait, you know. But, um,
Yeah.
I have a question. So what about piano and cello duos? Have any of that been rearranged for organ? Because it just seemed, it seems very natural.
Yeah, that's another thing you can do, actually, is to find some of that. And a lot of people are doing that very same thing. Where you can, you can take, is to rearrange pieces. I know that I heard a concert from the Early Music Festival, and Krista Rakic did a piece, and that she had rearranged. It was an old piece. It was a piece from it was a Baroque piece. It was not for organ originally, but it was so charming, and I put it somewhere. And it's anyway, um, but she had rearranged it. But that's something you can do too. You can rearrange all kinds of music. Um, I've done a lot of, like I said, Carlotta Ferrari. If you know Carlotta,
Mm.
I got to know her. I will put her name in the chat. Uh, Carlotta Ferrari.
And all of her music is available.
All of it.
All of it.
I don't think she sleeps. I mean, there must be well over 1,000 pieces on CPDL and IMSLP.
She's got some really interesting stuff out there. I haven't played any myself, but the things I've heard my colleagues play, I've written every single one of them down and said that needs to go on my list.
Oh yeah, I mean, I got a lot of mileage out of her Greensleeves Tango for Christmas. People loved it. It was a tango in 7/8.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and I was just in Uruguay, and I just got back actually, and I was meeting up with a woman organist there named Christina Benegas, and I brought the score down for her. I said, "Oh, I'm in Uruguay where the tango was born," and she said it actually is a different dance. She felt that it wasn't actually a tango. There was a different dance, but it was definitely a Spanish dance. But that was kind of fun to share that with her. But I've tango or whatever dance it is, it's really a fun piece. But you just have to. There's a lot of choral music. I do a lot of her choral music as well. She just writes. She has this sort of. She and Carson Kuhlman are very close colleagues and do a lot of stuff. But one thing, I must have all those WimFest programs somewhere.
They must be archived somewhere, right? If not, we ought to do that.
If not, we ought to do that. I've got them somewhere. And to be truthful, a lot of the music in order to get an audience, I hate to say it, but in order to get an audience for organ music, I needed to have choirs because organists don't always come out for stuff.
We're all very busy.
We're all really busy, yeah. But choirs bring their families and their friends, and so what I found was that I could do organ music, but I also had to have a choir in order to get people to come out.
Well, if you could share that with me, that'd be great. I'd love to see that and get that out there.
Rachel Lauren's music, have you?
Rochelle Laurent?
Yeah, Laurent, oui.
Yes.
It's good. I have not invested in it yet, but
yeah, and it's an investment because
Yeah.
The thing about Wayne Leupold's music,
yeah, well that's good. I mean,
his music is very, very expensive. That's one thing.
Yeah.
But also Rochelle, a lot of her music is pretty difficult.
Yeah.
But I remember chatting with her a long time ago, and she sadly only recently died, way too young. But she left behind some great pieces, and she also, and I was chatting with her at one point, she said, I realized I really needed to get music that was not so long and not so difficult. And so she has, from Wayne Leupold, they're short pieces. I think they're called short pieces, but dues.
12 short pieces. I have that one.
Yeah, she's got a
Mhm.
couple of those, and they're really, aren't they fun? I think they're really fun.
Yeah, they're cute and quirky. I like to bring them out every once in a while.
Mm.
They
Mm.
are cute and quirky. I agree. That's a great way of putting it, actually.
So Louise, where do we take it from here? Like, how can we continue to share with each other and give each other ideas? I'll start this Facebook post when I get back home in Boston, and get people talking about it, hopefully there. And I'd love for you to all to keep your eye out for that and chip in that conversation. But what else can we do?
Well,
Well, there's, yeah, Florence Price I'm interested in, but
yeah,
obviously,
and you can get her stuff on IMSLP, or you used to.
yeah, maybe.
Well, how do we continue it? Yeah, I mean, we say, hey, let's meet for coffee. But can people do, or else we say, hey, we're gonna have a Zoom chat.
Hmm.
We can have, I pitched this book club idea to the program committee last year, just because, well, I think Nick is doing a great job. I mean, I just think, and I had a bunch of articles that were in the TAO, and that's where I realized the way he laid it out, and what what he put in there, was wonderful. And we have this great resource with the book club. I mean, with the TAO, and because there's some really great articles, but even
I
just to
read
the
it
article,
more. Sometimes I don't read it, but
I know.
it's just
I don't either.
we should really, yeah.
That's why I think we need this book club, and just, or just chat.
So you
maybe-
call it book club because it's related to the TAO, is that?
Yeah, which isn't a book, but,
Yeah, so I kind of, yeah, maybe you'd have to read it first.
Well,
Or maybe not. I mean, it's also okay just to jump in and
I did not read, I'm going to read those articles now.
yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, where to continue? I mean, maybe we chat in the program committee about having, a little monthly get together. Maybe it's a couple of times on Zoom, and then we decide, hey, we're going to meet in Harvard Square or something.
Sounds like fun. I'm also going to remind everybody that March 10th is Women Composer Sunday. So if you can plan, I know last year I did all music by women composers, which was harder than I thought it might be honest. But that was really fun, and to kind of get the word out there to my congregation that this is something that we think about. So I would encourage you to do the same. If you're,
Yeah, there's some people who have already been saying, hey, do this for Women Composer Day.
yeah. And there was something, am I remembering correctly? I don't have my TAO with me, but am I remembering correctly that there was a score in there that you could even play?
Yeah, there was.
In this latest issue. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you, Louise. I'm going to close us out because it's coming on the hour here. But thank you so much for leading us in this great conversation, and we look forward to more.
Attending concerts is a good, remind each other of concerts, because I'm game when I'm available. Well, it depends how busy I am, but I like to go to concerts. It's a good thing. It's a nice thing to do with. Be reminded of, and encourage.
That's right. It's really good. Okay.
Right.
So yeah, go to concerts, and we have a program committee meeting coming up, so we'll talk about that there.
Yeah. It's going to be great. All right.
All righty. Been good to see you. Ciao.